I am trying to make an actual TV show.
It's so hard to find a funny show that isn't filthy. I watch them, but I don't want to.
Let's do this.
Fire, like lots of fire.
So dedicated.
So cool. Where's it go from there, you know?
Oh, have I got your attention now?
This is bigger than you can handle.
Got any plans for tonight?
What are you waiting for? Let's go.
Cool? Absolutely!
Hi! Ooh, good morning. How are we? SeriesFest Day 2. Did anybody go to opening night last night? Did anybody go to the party? And you're here before it's 10 a.m. Great work, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. SeriesFest Day 2, Pitch-A-Thon. Pitch-A-Thon is one of our incredible signature programs that I am so proud to have the honor to work on with Krista Gano of Working Artist Group that you will meet in a minute. So our pitchers go through a laborious process of practicing their pitch with the mentorship of Krista. So they have been working behind the scenes for a few weeks now. So you guys are going to get to see them in real time. No visual aids. They're up here being themselves, trying to sell their project to our lovely panel of experts that I'll bring up in just a second. So you will get to see what it's like to be a writer pitching in the room, and there'll be some live feedback on stage. And I think that our writers are very brave to be up here doing it, because writers not necessarily up on stage a lot, so we love to give them the spotlight. Before we get started, I do want to say a special thanks again to Working Artist Group for all of the work that Krista does. The Royal Bank of Canada Emerging Artist Program also supports this. Shout out to Canada, we love you so much. And Tito's Vodka, because you know what? They might need some vodka after this to calm the nerves, or maybe before, actually. So I will bring up our wonderful panel. If we can start with, where are your names, guys? Kyle, you're over here. Kyle Castellanette, nailed it. Kyle is the Vice President of Development and Production at Echo Lake Entertainment. Christine Devia. Christine is the Development Executive and Producer of from Chicana in Chicago. That's really hard to say, Chicana from Chicago. And Sarah Minnie, Director of Artist Development at Open Television Production. Again, I wanted to thank you guys all for being here. Thank you so much to Denver Film, to the staff, and to the volunteers before we get started. And I will hand it off to Krista Gano to moderate the event today.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Excited to have you here. So we're just going to pretty much jump in. I'm going to let you know how it's going to work, and then we're going to jump in with our pitchers, and then if you stay afterwards, I'll give you some of my tips. Make you stay a little bit longer. So the way this works is they're going to pitch for 5 minutes. We have been preparing 5-minute pitches. We acknowledge that you're very rarely going to pitch for only 5 minutes, but it's the time we have. And it's the time you're probably going to have at a party or anywhere else. So it's a great thing to practice, is that 5-minute pitch. So they're going to pitch for 5 minutes, and then we have 7 minutes with our panel who will ask questions or give feedback, and that is remarkable because it's very rare you're in a situation where you can look around and say, how was that for you? And we get to do that here. So without further ado, we are going to start with Erin. And I'm not going to say the name of her project because it's probably up behind me and I want her to say it. So come on up, Erin.
I'm much taller than Krista. Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. Let's see if I can make this any worse. Okay, cool. No, we're definitely going to hold this. I'm so sorry, y'all. She gets a black eye before her pitch starts. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erin Mullane, and I'm one of the creators and the director of the limited docuseries, The Other Lemming. Over 4 one-hour episodes, I take you on an incredible journey through the life of Mary Jenifer Mitchell, a woman adjacent to some of the most pivotal moments in comedy history, and no one knows her name. This isn't just a story about a lady who did some cool stuff in the 60s and 70s and a bunch of name dropping. Mary's story represents an entire generation of women who carved a path in a male-dominated comedy industry, while also be highlighting the National Lampoon and how it's shaped comedy, as well as some of the funny people of today that it's influenced. After moving to New York in the late 60s and working her way up for the better part of a decade, including performances at some of New York's most infamous venues, Mary found herself neck deep in the National Lampoon around 1972. One night while drinking with the Lampooners, they happened to be reading a Woodstock anniversary article in the New York Times and were discussing deaths that happened during the festival. Mary then exclaimed, "You know, hippies are just going to start showing up to rock shows to off themselves like lemmings jumping off a cliff." Director Tony Hendra took this idea and Lemmings was born. The show was a satirical musical review of Woodstock, and the show's ragtag cast of newcomers, including Chevy Chase, John Belushi, Christopher Guest, Gary Goodrow, Paul Jacobs, Alice Playton, and Mary Jenifer herself, took comedy to new brash heights and challenged the status quo. Lemmings was also the birthing ground for some of its cast's most famous bits. The first time John Belushi did his legendary impression of Joe Cocker was during Lemmings. He made that a staple bit of his time at SNL. The show was a smash hit. There was nothing but rave reviews. Everything was coming up roses for Mary until she severely injured her foot during a performance. Not only did she mangle her foot, but she continued to perform on the injury for another month until they could get around to getting a replacement for her. Important side note. Mary and Tony were having an affair, and their relationship wasn't going so hot. Tony was acrimonious to Mary and took the injury as an opportunity to fire her from the show. In the years since, he's done his best to remove Mary from the history of the Lampoon, literally erasing her in photos in his own documentary released in 2017. This was a huge blow for Mary. Her passion switched focus to country music. And during her rise in country music is when a family tragedy ripped her from her dreams and brought her back home to Colorado. Now, this whole men erasing women from history thing has really put a bee in my bonnet. And I took it as my personal mission to rectify that. And for Mary, at least, make sure she isn't forgotten to the industry that she poured her heart and soul into for so many years. Her contributions, like many other women of the time, were just absorbed into the works of their male counterparts. This is the time to give these women credit and to tell their stories. Right now, as we speak, there are so many women in this country affected by the decisions of men. We have to turn that metaphorical mirror back around and look at what the older generation fought for. Freedom and equality are a delicate balance, and we are teetering on the precipice of falling backwards. At the end of this series, we see the life of a woman who lived every day with passion, who never gave up on her dreams, a woman reconnecting with her past and finding the love of her life in her golden years. This is a story of hope and about perseverance in the face of tragedy, and a message that no matter who you are, your story is important. Following the completion of this limited series, I do have a follow-up series planned based on Ann Beat's comedy anthology, Titters, the first humor collection by women. Each episode will feature a different legendary funny lady, including Candace Bergen, Phyllis Diller, Gilda Radner, and Ann Beats herself, just to name a few. The Other Lemming is actually here with us today, so I would like to end this by having her stand up, and let's give her a round of applause. Hello.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I vote for, men erasing women's history. What? At the very top. At the very top of your pitch. Just because I think it's the most, it's the hardest, it's the stickiest, it's the most unapologetic, it's the most, right then and there you understand like your purpose, and I think that it's an easy way to mix it up with like everything that you say that is very important table setting. Like you do a very good job of like the contextualization of the who, what, when, and all of that. But I think that that point of view, I think, is can get people really riled up. Like I'm riled up now,
Good, that's the point.
So I mean that's one note.
Let's burn some bras again. Let's do it.
Right. And I wonder how you can do this. I don't know what your your research or your relationship has been with Mary, but I wonder if there's a way that you can excise some kind of quote or something more personal, so that we could also, because I'm wondering, how it must have felt. Like I have my own, projection of how that must have felt like crap, right? But I wonder, like, I also want to dimensionalize her, and like I wonder how she's been able to manage all of this. I guess I'm left with that lingering sort of desire to hear some words that she may have uttered, or whether it's you could find it online or through research or through personal close friends. Just to give
Mary and I are close friends.
Okay.
Honestly, this came from. Like, she showed up to acting class one day with all these pictures of her with, like, Chevy Chase and John Belushi. I was like, what the hell is going on here? What's happening? And then come to find out, she had this incredible career. And then when I found out that Tony Hendra literally cut her out of pictures, I got pretty pissed off. So that's where this passion came from, is to just tell my friend's story.
Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
You don't want to speak next?
You can Rochambeau.
We want to hear your voice on this topic. No, I'm just kidding. Well, just like Christine said, incredible job. I felt like when I heard the why, and I was like, pardon my language, but I'm like, fuck yeah, you know what I mean? And I think bringing that to the front would help really set the tone for the project and lead us into a little bit more of her story. And similar to Christine, that my question was like, do you know this person? My producer brain goes into like rights and all that stuff, but you answered that.
And we're talking with the person that owns the Lampoon rights now, and we're working with Christopher Guest people, and we already have a bunch of interviews secured, so.
Okay, we'd love to see that.
Yeah.
And I think, how you delivered it is in a really grounded tone, which I really appreciated. And I would love to hear a little bit more of what would be the tone of the documentary, the docuseries. Would it be that same sort of tone? Would we have sort of like a dramedy comedy moment? Like take us into what would we be feeling when we would watch it?
I mean, there's going to be a wacky element. The National Lampoon was not serious. There's going to be a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. This was the 60s. Don't worry about it. We're going to get there. But if I had to compare this to one like documentary, because each documentary is so different, like that's the point. You're telling very individual stories. But the Gilda Radner bio documentary is very much a similar tone.
And thank you for that
comment. To know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Start there. And I would agree, like the why now, I think it's great in a longer pitch to end it that way, but because it's a 5-minute pitch, you need to hook us right away. So I just want to echo that, like specifically because of the format. But otherwise, I mean, I think it's great. I was curious how you plan on breaking up the 4 episodes, because I think that's going to be part of the story and part of like.
Good question. Yeah. I was ready for that one. So the first episode is going to be basically, her life. We got to start at the beginning. That's where everyone starts. And then in the second episode, we're going to go into her time before the Lampoon, because she did a ton of stuff. She worked in the London West End. She worked on Broadway, off Broadway, Cafe La Mama, Cafe Go-Go, like everywhere. And then she found her way to the Lampoon, which is where episode 3 will be. And then we will also be talking about the Lampoon in that episode. We're working on getting Henry Beard, the guy who started the Lampoon at Harvard in the 50s, 60s. And then in the last episode, we'll go on her journey when she kind of separated, because all of her friends went off to do amazing things, and she came back to take care of her family. So we're going to see that, and then see back around, because she came back to acting in the last 10 years or so, and she met her husband 7 years ago. So at 75, well, she's 75 now, but back in her late 60s, that's pretty epic. So yeah, that's kind of the outline of it.
One more question. Will there be interviews for the docuseries, or is this
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Honestly, I have I have 5 days of Mary's story shot. It's in the can. What we're trying to secure is funding for going to get the interviews in LA and New York and paying for post. So that's where we're at.
Do you have any interviews lined up, or are you just starting to talk?
We have interviews secured. We have people who have said yes. So once we have the funding, they're waiting for a calendar date. Yeah. So
I think it would be helpful to know who you have secured and maybe include that in the pitch.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go in a bit of a different direction. I'd like to bring up to the stage Leah V.
Wow, this is intimidating. Get myself together. Hi, I go by Leah V. I'm a fat black Muslim, and my series is called Ugly. This 8-episode, 45-minute dramedy series is loosely and solely based off the shenanigans that occurred when I moved to New York City in my 30s from Detroit to pursue a career as a social media influencer and a plus-size hijabi model in a climate of thin, white TikTokers and incel male podcasters. Yeah. Ugly is a unique show that has the lead Muslim element of Rami, the unapologetically black characters of Insecure, and the plus-size fashion prowess of Survival of the Thickest. Ugly is gritty, it's raw, it's morally inappropriate in the most funniest way possible. In the pilot episode, Leah is on a shady-looking rooftop in New York City in the most badass outfit. And she's going live on Liver, a hot new social media platform that's a mix between Instagram and TikTok. Her turban is leaning to the side, unraveling, just like her love life. Her Fenty mascara is running along her snot and running from her eyes and snot from her nose. She's lost it completely. And like any other poppin' influencer, a breakdown makes for great content, engagement, and lots of likes. What do you do when the internet turns on the real you? She asks her diehard followers, teary-eyed. The screen cuts to black. Dramatic, yes, I know. She's a Leo. Leah has worked really, really hard to get to where she is in this very whitewashed industry, but Gen Z TikTokers and male chauvinist podcasters are taking over. Leah hadn't fit the beauty standard anymore, and now she struggles to reinvent herself yet again. But by the grace of the social media gods, Leah finally books a huge gig. Unfortunately, she finds out that her arch nemesis in real life and online, who's much skinnier, lighter skinned, and uses Black Lives Matter issues for clout, is getting paid way more than she is. Throughout the series, the viewer gets a glimpse into the glam and not so glam moments of Leah's life. bacterial vaginosis, or itchy coochies on set full of gazelle-like models, chasing after thick black men with full beards and nice teeth, taking drugs from an Aussie at a rave as Tears for Fears plays in the background, being harassed by overly religious and stuck-up aunties in the mosque, arranged marriages, and the worst thing of all, being mistaken for Lizzo. Not all fat people look alike, people. As the dramatics occur while juggling her besties in the whole wide world, her gay bestie, Anwar, who's Muslim, kind of, he's going back and forth about what it is to be super gay in a family that's very straight and very religious. And then we have Yejide, AKA Ye, like Kanye West, who's a struggling queer artist who was an underpaid assistant to Manhattan's Rich by the Day and an OnlyFans girl by night. And let's not forget about Dante, who's secretly in love with Leah, who won't give him the time of day because, honey, he ain't thick enough for her. He's mixed race, but identifies as a black man. And everyone, and I mean everyone, black and white folks, treat him like a white man. At the end of the season, Leah's forced to let go of the chains that social media validation has on her. She has no choice but to find out what life looks like outside of the shares and the likes and going viral. But do you remember her super dramatic breakdown at the beginning of the season that she live streamed on Liver? Yeah. It ends up going mega viral just as she's sworn off the toxic social media platform for good. And now, everybody wants a piece of her, and I mean everyone. The next season will follow Leah's newfound in-real-life stardom. Now she can't go anywhere without being noticed by the public. Being bent over a penthouse balcony by a rich Viking, internet trolls upset by her fat rolls, strained friendships, and Dante's new perfectly thin girlfriend that she thinks is trying to literally get rid of her. Ugly will captivate audiences by bringing to life a character that the world hasn't been exposed to yet. A fat black and Muslim girl discovering themes of religion, fat phobia, tokenism, sexual identity, mental illness, and reinvention. Leah is a character that's in all of us, figuratively speaking. Dating shenanigans, awkward sex, ride or die friendships, and let's not forget the fashion moments, honey. Leah can match each hijab to basically any outfit with a pair of scissors and leftover fabric. She's able to create masterpieces to fit her curvy body. In your face, Donatella. Ugly will leave viewers panting, wanting more, and will open third eye chakras, ears, and hearts to the stories of people who are usually silenced. Thank you.
Great work. Great work. I mean, I want to watch. And, you know, I really appreciated how you started with your personal connection to the story and a little bit of what motivated you to write it. And I also love that you came here giving the looks. Like, you really you were like full show, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And you definitely mentioned it, but just so for my brain, you said it was 8 episodes. How long are each episode?
45-ish minutes.
45 minutes. Okay. That's all I have for now.
Yay.
I echo that I also, oh wait, can you hear me? Hello? Okay. No, I also want to see it, and I am very down for just, no, it's not? Okay. I got you. Thank you. No, I could see all the fun and the themes in centering a character like this, and but I do want to ask about the length of time. Why you think it's what we call a 1 hour and not a half hour? I mean, it sounds to me like it could be hard funny. Sorry, that's a stupid exact term. But I just wonder why you think that you need an hour per episode.
That's a really good question. Well, to be truthful, I'm like an author, and so I'm very long-winded. But also, I feel like these episodes need to be longer because there are like deeper themes. It is a dramedy, so there's like different topics that I want to explore, like fat phobia and sexual identity and queerness in Islam. That's a very touchy subject nowadays, and even just like in the Muslim community. So there's some deeper more depth topics that I want to explore. So I think that's why they're longer, but I can definitely see if I can condense my long-windedness and hit you with the depth in 30 minutes.
I don't think it's about that. It's about knowing that you know what you need, that real estate. And I think, off the top of my head, is Rami a half hour or 1 hour?
I think it's a half hour, but it's a streaming half hour. Is it an hour? Yeah.
But and Secure is
so
a 1 hour.
I thought it was a half hour.
Is it also a half hour? Okay.
But that's the thing. I mean, because I had the same question, but it is kind of, there's a cheat code. If you say it's a streaming half hour, that means it can be 30 minutes. It can also be 38, 40. So if you say streaming half hour, then everyone's like, okay, cool.
Okay.
Or like, cable, but if you say it's a network procedural half hour, then it's like 24 minutes, right? So, but yeah, the 45 kind of threw me because I'm like, well, why 45? It's really lame, but all the executives think the same way. Like, how do you sell this? It's like you go to a different person for a half hour versus an hour, right? So you have to, that's how we first start thinking about it that way. Like, okay, it's an hour versus a half hour. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insider, but this is why you're here, right? And to plot-wise, I had a question about, at the very beginning in the pilot, you say that she's having some kind of meltdown. Something has happened, right, where she feels that her followers and have given up on her, right? I'm not sure if I caught what exactly that was, or if we need to.
Yeah, so I like to switch it around a little bit and make people want to know more. I'm very mysterious like that, clearly. I'm dressed in pink. Yeah, so yes, the beginning, I want to open up with a banger, of course. As a social media influencer, we love to do those types of things. And so basically, she is her agent has dropped her. She's not getting the views she wants. Male podcasters are like taking over. The thin white TikTokers doing their dances are taking over. So she literally has no prospects. And because she put so much real estate into being social media famous, because that's all she knows, when these things happen, she is devastated. And so that scene is like an opener, like, why is her turban leaning? Why is her Fenty mascara, like, why is she going live on Liver? And at the end of the season, you'll see like it come full circle of why she's going off. And so, yeah, that's what's happening. She's having a breakdown because her agent dropped her.
So I think that's very fascinating, and that's something to unpack, just what that says about her, in that moment where she does give into, despair, and I don't know how much of it is true. It's as far as like her followers. I think we are very sometimes quick to, because of someone who's in the business or someone that we think represents, everybody can react poorly to what they're saying, knowing that, or not knowing that the world is way bigger than that. So if she starts there, I think that gives you a lot of room for her own growth, throughout the series. And that's something to highlight because, I always want to know what's a character's flaws, why do they keep getting in their way? I mean, I think Rami's a great example. I mean, he says he wants one thing, but he does literally the opposite, right? So like, what is that for her? And I think that you have it in there, but I would want to hear more about that in the pitch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't know if we're out of time or not.
Sorry about that.
I'll wait. Is that meltdown, is that a flash forward, like, to the end of the season?
Yes.
Okay. Because one of my questions also, I mean, I agree with pretty much everything you both said, is the shape of the pilot, though. I'm not exactly sure, like, what happens in the pilot and where it ends. And, of course, that we have to know how we start before we can get to the end.
Right.
So I would be curious to know what happens specifically in the pilot, how you imagine the first episode ending.
So the first episode, we start with her having the breakdown, of course, and then we do a flashback type situation because I'm difficult, and we go to her being experiencing fat phobia on set, and that's where her coochie starts itching on set, and the thin models who she's on set with took video of her itching her coochie, and so the whole episode is basically her kind of going through that being put on the internet, and then we kind of see the fat phobia, and then like her interaction with her agent, and how her agent now wants like a new, thinner, smaller girl to kind of take her place, and then we get to see the other characters like Dante and Ye, and we kind of see all the characters' lives. So we're introduced to all the characters. And then by the end of the episode, it goes back to the itchy coochie part where the girl her arch nemesis ends up stealing her bacterial vaginosis campaign. And so it kind of cuts off there. So there's a lot going on, which is why it's a 45-minute boy. There's a lot going on. But it all works out like when you read it. Yeah, sorry.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. This is, wow, thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So next, we're gonna keep it laughing. We're gonna keep laughing a little bit on, and I'm not gonna say anything. No spoilers. Just here's Robin and Mal.
Hello? Perfect. All right. Hi, my name is Mal Ellis. I'm an award-winning Canadian creative producer. I've made a bunch of incredible short films that have premiered at Oscar-qualifying festivals, like here in Colorado at the Aspen Shorts Fest.
Hi, everybody. My name is Robin Matuto. I'm a Filipino-Canadian TV writer and actress. We are so excited to be here today to talk about our series, The Haunting of Trisha Lozada.
The Haunting of Trisha Lozada is a supernatural half-hour comedy series. We like to call it the world's first traumedy, mixing both generational trauma and comedy. It follows Trisha Lozada, a high schooler that has two big problems. Problem one, getting a date to the school dance. And problem two, the ghost of her Filipino mother haunting her at every turn. This series mixes together teen angst and comedy like in Mindy Kaling's Never Have I Ever, as well as a messy but magical family drama like in Jane the Virgin.
So through this series, I wanted to explore the roller coaster of mother-daughter relationships. As a Filipina, superstitions, the religion, and the occult all had a significant presence in my upbringing, and I wanted to find a fun way to combine that with Trisha's story. Our hero, Trisha, is a tough and snarky girl. Good grades, track star, she had it all, but after her mother's sudden death, all of that changed. Let's cut to the chase. She's kind of a loser now. She hates everybody but her best friend. But Trisha is just trying to deal with the grief and trauma while also trying not to be just the girl with a dead mom. I know that we're taking questions at the end, but I want everyone here to know that my mother is very much alive. Thank you.
So is my mom, just for clarification.
Trisha's mother, however, Mary Lozada, is a hard-ass immigrant mom. She's kind of like my mom in the sense that she would say something like, no dating until marriage, whatever that means. Have no fear, just because she's dead doesn't mean she'll stop nagging you. Marian just wants Trisha to succeed. For her to cross over to the other side, she must learn to let go and accept the fact that Trisha's growing up, while also having faith that she did what she could do while she was alive.
Our series kicks off when Trisha returns to school after the winter break. There was no time for our girl to grieve when her mother's spirit haunted the house. Now, Trisha thought she could escape her mother by returning to school, but little did she know, Marian wanted to get a head start on the parent-teacher conference. Now Trisha has to deal with her mother's unwanted opinion on everything, from her grades to her social status to a not-so-secret crush on the new girl, Casey. Now, Marianne, on the other hand, has to deal with new emerging supernatural ghost powers and realizing she can't control her daughter's life anymore.
With the help of her friends, both old and new, Trisha must learn how to navigate the unforgiving social battleground that is high school, while also dealing with her mother's very annoying spirit. With the big dance fast approaching, she sees this as her only shot at establishing her popularity. Oh, and also she wants a date with Casey, like, really badly.
Now, exercising your mother, that part's easy. Surviving high school, that's a whole lot worse. Now, Trisha, every morning at school, has to watch the most important people rank all the other students in popularity on the school news. And who's more cool and popular than our nerdy new girl, Casey Dockstader? Casey just transferred from the nearby reservation. An Indigenous student, she's a total popular culture nerd, and she just wants to make new friends. And what better way to make new friends than share all your interests? But everyone here, she thought she would be a weird loser and no one would really like her nerdy interests, but she's on everybody's mind at school, especially Trisha's. And Trisha will do whatever it takes to win her and the school over.
Is ghost busting cool nowadays, or at least cool enough to get you laid? Well, that aside, Trisha has some very adult responsibilities, like dealing with life insurance and the family finances. Our girl is trying to be a little bit more Degrassi, a little bit less Dawn of the Dead.
We actually had to do our cultural due diligence of mentioning Degrassi as the only Canadian pictures on this panel. Now our series takes more of a supernatural tone, less of a horror. Marian's ghost powers start out very limited, turning lights on and off, knocking things over. More of a nuisance, less of a haunting. But as the series progresses, her powers will begin to evolve, and soon Marianne will gain the ability to possess others, like Trisha's aunt, seeking full control over her daughter's life.
So our series takes really dark and heavy topics and makes them feel lighthearted. We like to say that the only real jump scare that you'll get here is a parent telling you to your face that they're actually proud of you.
Yikes. Now with our series, Trisha and Marianne need to help each other move on, and we'll need to learn to let each other go, both spiritually and emotionally.
So I really wrote this series at the end of the day to be a love letter between me and my mom. It wasn't easy being a teenager and growing up with an immigrant mom who was going through life at the same time as me. But my therapist told me that it's okay to laugh at my problems, so I took that advice and I made a TV show.
And that's why Robin's therapy bill is in our budget.
It's true, it's a very big expense. So growing up, I always saw ghosts as a welcome presence. In my culture, it's seen as a good sign when someone is visiting you from the other side. I have faith that Trisha and Marian's story will hit close to home. It's time for us to share this ghost story with a bigger campfire.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I think this is really fun, really sticky. I could see multiple seasons, and I could see the depth. You know, I could see the emotional resonance. You know, I am so for especially supernatural stories that can be seen as a metaphor. You know, and I and maybe this is me projecting, but this is what I love about the idea of, you know, whether you have a parent in your life or not, the absence of it. How does that play out in your life? You know, and I could see whether you have parents who are no longer here or not. That is, you are sort of joining two camps of people for the sort of same beautiful, you know, connection that we have, you know, here in life or you know in the afterlife. So I don't know. I feel that's very deep. I love the cultural relevance, you know, especially, you know, as a Mexican, we also feel that, you know, when someone visits you, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. So I love, you know, mainstreaming those kind of cultural beliefs in a really funny and enjoyable way. I don't know if I have any specific notes right now, but I did want to commend you on all of those factors because it's a pretty strong pitch.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Does Trisha have a father in her life?
No, so a lot of Trisha is based off of me. So I have a single mom, and I always envisioned Trisha as just having a single mom. Came over from the Philippines over to North America and raised her on her own. So I think that's where they butt heads a lot too. A lot of the series I feel is like, you know, about women and their intergenerational conflict and the new guard versus the old guard. And like, for me growing up, a lot of it was realizing too that like, because my mom was going through a divorce and because she was raising me alone, like she's also going through life at the same time as me. And I think that was a very like mind-blowing thing for me to realize as a teenager, and I wanted to have all of that there. Also just like, who needs dads? Yeah.
I only ask because she's dealing with life insurance and bills. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Like,
Oh yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I can really quickly. Sorry, the Denver air is so dry here. That's why I had my water up here. Yeah, so the life insurance one, I'll talk really quickly about that. So we wrote a whole episode, or we have an episode idea where one of her deadbeat SoundCloud rapper cousins loops her into a multi-level marketing scheme to pay off like their life insurance / funeral expenses. So that's kind of like what we mean by we take like really dark topics like having to deal with your mom's will and having to deal with her finances. But like her cousin comes in and is like, hey, if we sell like 60 of my rap CDs, like we can cover the funeral. So just having fun with that, yeah.
I guess I was just, I mean, practically speaking, is she allowed to live on her own, or is someone living with her? I guess like that's part of the
Yeah. So Trisha's Marianne's sister also lived with them. Essentially, after Marianne's death, her sister comes and moves in with a lot of Filipino culture, even my own culture. It's a lot of family coming together, especially during time of death, and family taking care of family. So Trisha's aunt comes in and takes over. Do you want to speak to that character?
Yeah, so Tita Marcy is based on one of my own aunts who like doesn't believe in like Western medicine and consults tarot cards and like lights incense. So it's very much like, again, new guard versus the old guard. Tita Marcy was raised in North America, whereas Marian was raised in the Philippines. So they clash a lot on that too. And she has to deal with that whole relationship where she kind of has like quote unquote a new mom as well.
Yeah, in our penultimate episode, the idea is that Trisha's aunt, Tita Marcy, is very much not treating the daughter in which Marianne thought she was going to be raising. And then Marianne gets so powerful that she ends up controlling Tita Marcy to be like, this is how I should raise you. I couldn't do it as a ghost, and now I'm fully angry now, and I'm going to take over control and physically take control here.
So I think you answered it, but I just want to be clear. No one else can see her mom except for Trisha, right?
Yes.
And until maybe she gets the ability to possess someone, and then they're like, oh, there's someone else here?
Yeah, so only Trisha can see her, but we do have a running bit where this one track star runner that she tried to go on a date on is the only guy who can see her. So he's just constantly in the background like screaming, and everyone's like, what is Lucas screaming at? Like nothing is there. But other than Lucas, it's just Trisha for the whole series. Yeah.
Well, yeah, great work. I love seeing how two people kind of come together for a pitch and the performance of it all. You know, incredible work on that. A question that I have is, what would you like your audience to walk away from after watching this? They completed the full series, and if they can sort of leave with one sort of either feeling or thought, what would be important to you?
Yeah, I think a big thorough line for me is that I read a poem once, and one line that's, I wish I knew the author right now, but one line that stuck out to me is, we're all walking each other home. And it's just the idea of like, we all have the same end goal, especially like a mother-daughter relationship. We're all going through life at the same time. And I think I remember reading that poem and being like, yeah, my mom doesn't know how to deal with this life at all. Like, it's her first time. I was telling the other pitchers yesterday, like, she had me at like my age now. And it's like, I just had a smoothie for breakfast. She had like a whole kid. Like, like that's wild to me. And it's just like remembering that like we're all kind of going through this journey, just wearing different shoes, so to speak.
Yeah, for me as well too, connecting with this story. Like when I first came out to my mother, the first thing she said to me is, your dad's adopted, you know that, right? And I was like, wait, what? And then I found out everyone on my dad's side is actually not related to me by blood whatsoever. And it was a whole realization that my dad never had a father and had never known what a father figure was other than the folks around him. And so him trying to raise me was him just doing it and doing what he could. And I can honestly say he did not the greatest job, but he did all right. So I can't blame him. And now looking at stories like this, like for me, I really want to get people away just really understanding your parents as well too, and just connecting a little bit more and just looking at them like human beings as well as another person in your life.
Yeah, that is so important. I always have to kind of remind myself of that with my parents too. I'm like, you're driving me nuts, but I'm probably driving you nuts too, you know, and you're in this journey. This is all new to you. So I really appreciate hearing that quote and hearing a little bit about what you want the audience to walk away from. And can you just remind me of how many episodes and the runtime of each episode?
Yes, so it's a half hour and we're thinking 8 episodes.
Perfect. And do you have visions for future seasons?
Yeah, so basically we wanted season 1 to end off with Trisha seemingly exercising her mom. But in Filipino culture, there's this really fun thing, not fun, but like there is this superstition where you're not actually supposed to go directly home after the funeral because you might attract the spirit to come back home with you. So we actually get a reveal at the end of season 1 that Trisha did go directly home after the funeral, which is why her mother stayed. But it accidentally opens up a portal so that everyone on the dead side comes over to this mortal plane. And now her mom has to deal with her mom, and her mom to come over to the other
whole
side.
Lozada clan coming down.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, don't bury the lead. I think one thing that comes up to me now, having heard, ideas for episodes, and you have so much material, I think it's important for a 5-minute pitch to shape it, and you could look at a whole season as a 3-act structure, and where you want to and feel the need to say, and this is what that looks like, but just so that people can really follow the arc of the first season, and then like we just uncovered here in talking about it after, how you're going to have that cliffhanger, propel the next season. Super major keys. So you have it. I think it merits being within the pitch.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, we're going to stay with the theme of young people, and we're going to move on to Ebele. Welcome her to the stage.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ebele Onyema. I am a social worker who specializes in young people's relationships, and I have a confession. Despite my professional background, I'm not 100% sure what value I place on sex. There's just been so many voices in my head. Similar to our last presenter, my Nigerian parents. No boys until marriage. Clearly, immigrants don't understand order of operations. And then there's the church, where the message is, your virginity is like a stick of gum. Do you want to give your husband chewed up gum on your wedding night? No, I did not. And then on the flip side, there's Sex in the City, where that message was, ladies, if we just have sex like men, that'll be our screw you to the patriarchy. Get it? So many voices. Sometimes, even as an adult, it's hard to hear my own. Maybe some of you can relate. We think Gen Z's different though, don't we? I mean, they do have this wildly outsized confidence when it comes to things like environmental justice and TikTok dances. But when it comes to what happens in the bedroom, that's where in my years of practice, I have seen the very real chokehold their identities have on how they meet and mate, which is why I created Reimagining, a 30-minute unscripted series that each 8-episode season explores a different issue affecting Gen Z. This first season focuses on hookup culture. In the show, I sit down with a diverse group of 18 to 26-year-olds and lead them in conversations that explores their views on and reimagines their experiences with hookup culture in New York City. Think the cast of Sex Education pulling up a seat to work it out with Jada at the red table. And I am Jada. Now, whenever I tell people about Reimagining, someone always feels the need to inform me, well, Gen Z is not having sex. Okay, fewer young people are having intercourse, but many of them are engaging in sexual activities that are leaving them vulnerable. Over half of all sexually transmitted diseases are contracted within this age group. Teen girls are confronting their highest levels of sexual violence that they have ever reported. And 1 in 2 trans or non-binary individuals will experience some form of intimate partner violence in their lifetime. The time for a show that addresses young people's relationships is now. I recently had the opportunity to shoot a proof of concept for Reimagining Hookup Culture, and what the cast shared was raw and illuminating. Like when I asked about consent, Lilia, 26, Middle Eastern, straight, said, yeah, I'll be in a situation where I've consented, but then out of nowhere, the guy will decide to hit you. He'll decide to choke you. And you just go with it. But I wish someone had asked me. I wish there had been a conversation. After which, James, 20, Afro-Latino, straight, shared, girls tend to get annoyed when I ask for consent. It's like, why are you asking that right now? You shouldn't be talking about that in the moment. And then there's RJ, 25, Latino, gay, who said, gay guys are taught our whole lives are about sex. I would hook up with sometimes 10 or more people in a day. It became like, oh my God, like an alcoholic. How did I get in the liquor store? How did I end up in this guy's apartment? And then, finally, when I asked about pleasure, Melody, our hero, 20, white, bisexual, announced, wanting to be pleased in that way shouldn't be a crime. Because honestly, if I'm not done, you're not done. If a show like Euphoria is the fever dream, Reimagining is the return to lucid. Real life young people deconstructing, then reconstructing their hookup culture from their own experiences. In between the cast conversation, I'll conduct quick, fun, women on the street interviews to add added breadth to the conversation. As the host, it's my job to squeeze depth and color from these stories, but I'll also be telling my own. Each episode begins with a solo interview of me relaying a quick hookup anecdote from when I was the cast age. It's a tool to frame each episode, yes, but it's also an offering, a way for one generation to say to the next, I hope you do things differently. I hope you do things better. It is my deepest desire that young people would watch Reimagining and take all the voices that are swirling around in their heads and turn them into a conversation, one that empowers them to live life by their own rules. And that's why I see Reimagining existing beyond the show, because it's a podcast, it's a tour of live events, it's online discussion, it's international co-productions. Future seasons could focus on mental health or masculinity. Because for me, this isn't just about making a TV show. It is about starting a revolution. And if that interests you, I would love to talk. Because things don't have to be the way they've always been. We can, in fact, reimagine them.
Thank you so much for that. I really, you answered, a lot of questions. Why you, and how are you going to be part of this exercise? And it really says something that you're going to put yourself out there. You personally, I think the way that you started, I have a confession. That people always lean in, right? People always lean in, and you did such a great job because you can't just start there. You started with this sort of conundrum that you have personally, right? So. There's so much I love about this. I want to ask a question that I could see, execs ask just about, because I bumped on it, but to me, I know the holistic, merit of the entire thing, but I think Hookup Culture is just one episode, is that right?
One season, the first season.
Oh, so one season. Okay, so the whole season will be about hookup culture and future seasons. Okay, I'm sorry, my bad. I thought that it was one episode. Okay, so that makes sense. And with I had because I trust you, because of your experience and your expertise, you mentioned that you'll make sure you're gonna get color and depth in these interviews. And I suppose I was wondering, if you were going to engage with them in the conversation, or is the goal for they themselves to hear a dialogue? Because while I understand that you want to offer them your experience, and I think the way that you close it is beautifully, I wonder how much they're saying out to the ether, and how much you can, because of your experience, can somehow also let the audience see that there's, the feeling and then the multiple perspectives around that feeling, so that no matter where they are in their life or whatever applies to you, you're still gonna be able to anchor yourself and ground yourself, because I think that is sort of one of the goals of this. So I'm just wondering if you've done, if you've thought more about and if you've already had these interviews, how much you're not necessarily challenging them, but doing the social work therapy with them, because I think that's very valuable for them as well.
Yes, so there's a balance, when I lead group therapy sessions all the time, and my job as the facilitator of that is to pull a thread, say more about that, to say, ooh, that reminds me of what so-and-so just said. How do you feel about that, right? So you're like the conductor, you're the DJ, you're turning it up here, you're turning it down there. That's my job, but they are the musicians. They are making the music. This is about them. This is a show for and with Gen Z, not about Gen Z. And it's not a show about some millennial telling them how they should be doing what they should be doing, right? But of course, I'm gonna ooh, say more, go deeper, so I'm drawing out from the conversation. And then where it's appropriate, I might say, oh, well, when I was going through whatever, right? Or I might say, ooh, I wonder, does that feel safe? Or how does that land in your body? Where does that feel in your body? Sorry, dry, for real. So things like that would be my role.
I think there's a great value add, to this whole series, again, as far as why you and what you can do to facilitate this conversation. So don't be afraid to even put a finer point into, the way that you're gonna thread through and facilitate these conversations. And I think that perhaps knowing a little bit of, these kids, if they're gonna be, of how you're sampling, surveying these kids. Are they, from the coasts only? Are they from the middle America? All the sort of demographics beyond them being in the same age group. I think it's always practical and useful for an exec to hear, how are you getting this survey from among, a very, really huge country that has, Gen Z, coming up. Their perspective is also tied to where they live, right?
Sure, of course, yeah. So in the proof of concept, the cast was majority young people of color, half queer. So the diversity element of this show is a non-negotiable for me. And the way that New York is the container, and so you are getting someone from Kansas or someone from the Deep South or whatever, and they're all converging on this place and acting out their youth in the same streets, but they're coming from very different perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's key to incorporate into the pitch. Thank you.
Incredible work. I think you working in the social work field, one is a lot. So thank you for your service in that. I have a lot of people who I love who are social workers. So thank you. And what I've noticed in my time of loving social workers, right? A lot of people that I love, is their passion for having these conversations and for cultivating change by inspiring those conversations. So I definitely felt that when you were explaining it. It sounds like you also have an impact strategy after this, which I think is essential and would really make it valuable to this piece. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how one episode would play out. Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about the intro and what are we going to see? Are you going to take us on the day of the life of them and then end in a round table discussion? I would love to hear a little bit more about the vision of one episode, whether it's the pilot or whatever you feel like sharing.
Yep, sure. So for the proof of concept, we shot it as if it was 4 separate episodes, and each episode focuses on a theme. So the first episode was laying the groundwork. What is hookup culture? What does it mean when you say that? And all kinds of, what are the rules? And what happens if you break the rules, and et cetera, right? Second episode was stories we tell. So what are the stories that you were told about sex, about your body growing up? And what of those stories do you still hold on to? And then third episode's called Good Sex, What Makes Sex Good. And then the fourth episode is Reimagining. So we've talked a lot about hookup culture and how it is. How do you wish it was? So that's for the proof of concept. For the proof of concept. And in the show itself, I would see each episode similarly. This is the consent episode. This is the pleasure episode, etc. The episodes themselves start with me, and then typically would go to the woman on the street interview, and it's just fun and spicy and silly. But that doesn't mean it's not in depth or meaningful, right? But it's just had a lot of energy. We're in Washington Square Park, just polling passersby, and then that sets up both of those things, allow for the cast conversation to then go deep. And as you heard, the things that they were saying were just, no holds barred. And so we go deep there, pull out when it maybe like is a little too much, have a little bit of that woman on the street levity, go back in, and then tie it with the reimagining.
Thank you for that. It just helps sort of, my mind can go in so many directions with the red table talk and the man on the street, person on the street vibe, and I feel like there's a lot there. And I also think it could be interesting to see a little bit of the lives of these folks. Obviously, the budget, if we're talking about it all over the place, then that's gonna, be a little bit more impactful there. But I think that could be really interesting too, because everybody has their own personhood, their experience that they're coming in, and that can really be informative for their answers. And I also just wanted to leave on that this project is fundable, and you can, a great resource outside of traditional industry things and funding models is you should look at reaching out to your local, or I'm from Chicago, so I would reach out to the Chicago Health Department, and they actually are funding projects that are inspiring education and conversations like this.
That's awesome.
So I would definitely do that and get into the grant world, because they would love to be behind supporting something like this. And I do think something like this could be really impactful in creating those sort of conversations. Yeah, I'm gonna shut up. Your turn.
So many of the questions I have, so I only have like one or two left. Is it a new cast each episode, or is it for the whole season?
In my mind, it's the same cast for the whole season, but I've been, I think there's a number of ways to go about it. It could be interesting to say, all right, we're gonna do an episode, it's all first-gen kids, or it's all, kids who grew up in super conservative situations, or whatever it is, right? So you could play with it, but in my mind, when I was creating it, same cast, that's just like super diverse, each one bringing their own kind of perspective, and we ride with them for the whole season.
And then just 'cause I'm curious, what other topics would you want to talk about in subsequent seasons?
Yeah, I mean, you could focus on mental health, which is a huge issue for Gen Z, for all of us, but for Gen Z, masculinity. When, in the research for hookup culture, you do see what an issue, just gender in general, and the way that we play to our gender scripts impacts not just how we act in the bedroom, but how we act outside of it as well. So masculinity, I think, is a really big issue. Those are the two that I'm seeing immediately for the second and third seasons.
Gotcha. And then, it sounds like it's a show for Gen Z, but do you hope that people from all walks of life would want to tune in and watch?
Yeah, I can't go to a dinner party or anywhere, and when people ask what do, I cannot meet a mom who at the end isn't like, okay, so now then you come home with me, right? Because you helped me raise my kid. And so I think parents are watching this show. I think older generations are watching it as well, because we're supposed to have it all figured out, but ask Esther Perel. Watch couples therapy on Showtime. We don't all have it figured out, right? So older generations are watching it too, to be like, okay, all right, okay, got it, right? And so it's just really, I think, interesting, entertaining, enriching, affirming to watch people deeply in their humanity discussing being vulnerable in a way that maybe you can't be in your personal life, and then learning from that. And so I think, yes, this is a show for Gen Z, but older generations are definitely watching this.
All right. Great discussion. All right. Hello. Oh, I can tell I'm not there. I am. All right. We have gotten to our last pitch, It's worth it. Stick around. It's awesome. I would like to welcome to the stage Lindsay and Duncan.
You've seen it. The audience buzzes in anticipation. A booming voice calls out, "Please welcome the President of the United States." Hail to the chief plays. The president walks on stage and takes the microphone in front of perfectly steamed flags.
Someone had to steam those flags, and we're ready to tell our story.
I'm Duncan Teeter.
And I'm Lindsay Scola, and we've steamed flags at some of the world's most important political events. We met as junior advanced staffers on Barack Obama's historic 2008 run for the White House.
And over the years, we've worked together on campaigns, inaugurations, and presidential visits across the country and around the world. You know that picture of Barack Obama, and he's looking badass in a leather jacket, and he's giving a speech in the pouring rain? Lindsay advanced that.
That cold, wet, historically important day where the boss turned to me and said, "You know, I could sign these books faster if I could feel my fingers." And when President Obama needed to have a private meeting with Vladimir Putin at the G20 summit in Turkey, Duncan was there to body block the unauthorized TV cameras.
And now I'm a Russian internet celebrity.
Our show Advance is a half-hour, single-camera, scripted comedy about a group of advanced staffers who live and work on the road, organizing the events of an underdog presidential campaign. Imagine the political whack-a-mole of Veep, but wrapped in the behind-the-scenes frenzy of the bear.
You've seen every version of smart, articulate people running the country while walking purposefully down hallways. The hopeful version, the scary version, the so mean it's funny version. We want to show you the chaotic underbelly of that world.
The heroes of Advance are the intelligent, articulate, neurotic, sleep-deprived, green but in charge anyway kids who hopscotch the country, planning events for the boss they love, one clusterfuck at a time.
Our show centers around advanced staffer Bria Jackson. Bria's the best in the business. She can design a campaign rally site backwards and in high heels while everybody else is learning to crawl. But Bria has one fatal flaw. She sucks at exactly the most important part of campaign advance. She can't talk to the candidate. When Bria's boss is around, she absolutely loses all of her confidence. She fumbles, she mumbles, and sometimes she falls flat on her face.
When our pilot opens, an epic fuck-up lands Bria demoted from trip lead to site lead. She now reports to her arch nemesis, road warrior Jared Curtis. Jared is part-time snake oil salesman, part-time bull in a china shop, and full-time believer in the art of delegation. He's like the cicada of campaign advance, disappearing for years only to resurface every election cycle, inexplicably landing top jobs despite his shortcomings. He was Bria's boss in the last election, epitomizing the outdated boys' club style of advance where the girls ordered catering for the press and the men got together at the end of the day to drink bourbon and charm the local ladies with tales of their days at the White House.
At least the team also includes Bria's snarky best friend, Joyce Wynn, the jaded press lead who's back for her third presidential cycle because she's still gunning for that job at the White House. Bria's the only person on the road who knows about Joyce's ADHD diagnosis, which is a secret they're keeping because they don't want Joyce to get labeled a hot mess. In spite of the recent Adderall shortage, Joyce is still determined to make it to Washington.
Her morning meditation goes something like this. I belong in the West Wing. Power pose.
Our cast is rounded out by the other advanced staffers who plan the motorcade and build the rally crowds and order catering for the press, which at long last is a gender-neutral job.
Our show's overall storyline is serialized, focusing on our core group of advanced staffers, but every episode is self-contained, taking place in the run-up to a different campaign event in a different location.
Like Minnowville, Wisconsin, where Jared accidentally invites the entire town to attend a very small press conference, leaving Bria with just 24 hours to build an accidental rally.
Or Beaver Bruce, South Carolina, where a freak snowstorm traps the candidate in the hotel with the advance team.
Or the Ohio State Fair, where the team is on the hunt for a food-on-a-stick photo op, but every picture they send back to campaign headquarters looks more phallic than the last.
Every episode brings us the opportunity for new allies, new adversaries, and new ways for our core cast to sink or swim as they navigate fundraisers, rallies, debates, and the occasional hotel bedbugs.
Season 1 ends with our team hoping that their last big event is enough to clinch the Democratic nomination.
Well, season 2 and beyond takes them through a botched VP selection, an ill-timed balloon drop on election night, and ultimately to the White House, where Joyce still doesn't work in the West Wing, Bria still reports to Jared, and the team still has to deliver on the high wire of advance.
This show's not about Josh Lyman.
This show's about what happens when Josh Lyman tells someone to do something nearly impossible, and that person tells someone else who tells someone else, and that person tells the advance team to do it.
We are so excited to bring you a completely fresh take on the seemingly exhausted world of the campaign trail.
Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Oh no.
Oh, here I am. Hey, this is like from the get, I was like, oh, what is this world? That's so intriguing and hasn't been seen before, and it's very niche, and to know that you two have experience in that world, I mean, that immediately is a huge plus.
We want someone other than our moms to know about it.
No, I really liked it, and you do such a great job of having, I think, what might be that tone in the series, like actually like presenting the tone in the way that you're talking about it, in the way that you're, performing the pitch. So I really love the sense of humor. And I am happy that you said, like, what is Bria's flaw, that she can't, actually mutter words in front of her, like her boss. And I am all about, especially for half-hour serial shows where you mentioned the Frenzy of the Bear. Right? What was the other one? Frenzy of the Bear?
Political whack-a-mole, a Veep.
A Veep. Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting place to inhabit this show. I don't know why I also thought of Abbott Elementary, and I think what I love about Abbott Elementary, not to superimpose on this, is that especially because it is on the campaign, and Veep also, how much, I'm just curious, you're going to. Where are the edges of the real issues that you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, we love Abbott also. I think the reason we don't reference it as a comparable is that we don't want people to think it's the mockumentary style.
Okay.
But definitely the heart of Abbott. Something that, when we reference all of these other political shows, is that you don't always see the hardworking grunts that are at the bottom that just want to make the world a better place. And so there's something really sort of refreshing in that when our politics are, in a not great place. But in terms of the issues, we think in a funny atmosphere, there's so many great opportunities to take this on. We talked just on the surface about Joyce's ADHD, and that there is a very real Adderall shortage here, which is a running C storyline through our pilot. But there's a lot of people that use this medication for multiple disorders that can't get it right now, and what does that actually mean for them in their lives? But we also have, beyond neurodivergence, we have a gay character, we have issues that are on the campaign trail every day about environmental issues, abortion rights, that we'll be able to take on in a way where people aren't necessarily expecting it.
And just like campaigns program their events to take on issues, each show, we can take on new issues because we can go to a rural part of the country where people are experiencing the lack of access to reproductive health care, and the candidate can be highlighting that issue, and we can show people struggling with that issue. But because it's a comedy, I think we'll keep people coming back for more.
Yeah, I think that's important to know, even inside the pitch, because people are you will be pressed on how you're portraying and what you're saying about very divisive political issues. So I think it's important to say that that your approach, that you're not going to shy away from it, and this is how you're going to deal with it. And I guess the Abbott Elementary thing also came out of me wanting to understand if so you mentioned two main characters and how big the ensemble is going to be. so that we know that we have, many different characters who are dealing with, different things just to add to it. I mean, I guess at the beginning I didn't know, and that's the part of like what I love about TV. In the beginning, you need to just focus on one or two, but like, now I feel like I know every single character and enjoy them on their own. Like for instance, on Abbott, right? Or is it like the bear, which I think is really just more centered on one person, and it feels a little bit more dramatic, in the sense of like his own, issues, mental health issues and whatnot. So as far as like, I guess the question somewhere in there is about, just making sure that we get the wealth of characters that will populate this, or if it does stay mostly with a couple of the two that you mentioned.
What I love about you bringing up Abbott is that our show is about a team, and I think Abbott is about a team, and it's about discovering how these people support each other. What's comparable, I think, to the bear is that there's a deadline at the end of every episode. Just like Carmi has to get a meal on a table, our team has to get a multimedia event on international broadcast at the end of every episode. So that driving kind of force getting you to the end. But I love the team concept. And there are 5 characters that will take you through season 1. So our lead, our press lead, our site lead, our motorcade lead, and our crowd lead, all fabulous individuals. And really the show is about the ways in which they support each other, the ways in which they drive each other crazy, and the ways that they ultimately come together at the end of each episode to put up an amazing event.
Yeah, we actually joke that the limited service hotels that they have to live in are at the end of the ensemble cast, because these people never leave each other, like it or not. So
yeah.
Thank you. Is yours working?
What do you think the thesis statement of the show is?
That there is a whole bunch of people that want to make this world a better place. And that it is not just this political chess of how I get the most power myself. And the show is very funny. Sometimes it's going to be about just trying to get a stage built in a place where you can't find a vendor. But at the end of the day, Bria and Joyce and Jared and our other characters really just want to make the world a better place. And I'm hoping that we can give people sort of a renewed interest in the backbone of American democracy at a place where it's floundering.
You did a good job at that. That was amazing.
It's funny, I actually have a friend who has worked on an advanced team, so I was aware when you started talking, I'm like, I think I know where this is going. So fantastic. Thank you for your service. I guess a practical question, how do you intend to, in success, like produce this? Do you imagine you'd actually be going around different parts of the country, or do you think you would be cheating locations? Because I think that's an aspect that a lot of executives would be thinking about.
Absolutely. I think that it's possible to build this world in Southern California or Atlanta or Vancouver or wherever we'd be fortunate enough to produce this show, because as much as we're going around the country, we're going around the country to high school gyms, community colleges, the homes of wealthy people, where our fictional senator from Michigan, Deborah Davis, our candidate, will be doing fundraisers. So there's an opportunity to produce this world very economically. I think as the show grows, I think you're going to want to see locations that grow beyond what you can do in just one of our industry towns. But I think we have the opportunity, especially in this first season, to really create amazing, evocative worlds in a way that can be produced.
And the great thing about Advance is these are the behind the scenes people. So you're not necessarily seeing a giant rally. You're seeing what's happened behind the curtain.
When there are 50,000 people waiting for the candidate, the most dramatic thing going on might be in the staff office where the printer isn't printing. That's where I've cried.
I've seen it.
Great work.
Thank you.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say that it was great work. So yeah, and I was just gonna add I was just gonna ask a question regarding the humor, but I was picking up on the Veep of it all, and it kind of touched upon Parks and Rec style, because Parks and Rec is chaotic, but in a way that's like endearing, and the people behind it and all of that. So that's what came up for me when I was hearing it a little bit, but outside of that, I'm done.
Awesome. Thank you
so much.
right, let's give a hand to all of our pitchers. They worked really, really hard. So before everybody goes, thank you all for coming and for listening, and thank you all for your insight and your time and your generosity. That was perhaps one of the most generous panels I have ever had the pleasure of working with. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Please give them a round of applause. Just a couple of quick tips as you are, going out into the world and maybe preparing your own pitches. Remember who you're pitching to. We're not really pitching to our friends. We're pitching to people who are in the business to take a project and to finance it and find a home for it and to come alongside you in various ways. So make sure you're answering some of those questions that they may have in their producer brain, as Sarah put it. So make sure you're doing that. Write it. Practice it physically. Get it on your feet or in a chair, I don't care, have it come out of your mouth ball, like have it come out of your face and practice it, because we think we know things in our heads, and then when we go to bring it out of our bodies, it changes. So practice it physically. Have fun. These are things you're passionate about, and if you're not passionate about it, I don't know, maybe find a different project. Like these are things that we should be delighted to talk about, because we are just, this is our lives, these are our stories, and we want so badly to see them come to fruition. So have fun. Let everybody know a little bit of who you are. On that note, this is a team sport, right? We're not doing this alone. So if you do not work well with others, or you can't find a team, or you're unsure of how to find a team, those are things you can practice on with yourself, because we want to add more voices, more perspectives, more hands, more help to the projects. And if you're not open to some of that, that's something that you might want to look at in yourself before you step into this. Think of pitching like dating. Not everyone's going to like it. You're not going to be a match for everybody. They're not going to be a match for you. I know these are very personal stories, and sometimes we can walk away feeling really deflated if something didn't land. But honestly, we're all just trying to find the best match. Trust me, you don't want a bad match either as a creator. You want good matches. So think of it like dating. You're going to do a lot of it, and hopefully you'll find the match that's right for your project. And try not to take it too seriously in that. And realize that just because something didn't work this time doesn't mean that you haven't made a relationship that will work in another project. So with actors, I always say book the room, not the job. It's the same with pitching. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but I'm happy to follow up with you. Because really, we're interested in continuing these conversations, right? We want them to continue. And if someone tells you how they want to be communicated with, listen. If they say text me, text them. If they say I'd rather have that in email them, because every single interaction we have with someone, every single time, we are teaching them how we work, and we're learning how they work, and we're respecting the workflow. So really be thoughtful about how you're showing up in those spaces and how you're communicating in those spaces. Be kind, be clear, be consistent. And I think mindset is the last thing I want to talk about. Really take care of your mindset in this business. It is such a privilege to work in a space where we get to change the world a little bit at a time through story, and it can wear on us. So figure out those ways that you ultimately can show up wherever you need to be that day, being just kind and relaxed and focused and just joyful. So whatever that means to you, whatever practice that means for you to be able to show up in spaces where you're really open to the experience, try to make sure you're setting aside time to take care of yourself in those ways, because they're the best ways that we're going to get these stories out in holistic, lovely spaces where an audience can enjoy. And I think that's all I have. So thank you for coming. And I'm going to keep you guys here. I'm going to release everybody else. Thank you. There's a lot of great stuff.